All right, my friends, glad you joined me. I don't normally do this. I saw this article and I wanted to just share it with you. I thought it was crazy. So it's called Signs of Religious Psychosis. Experts really want you to recognize. It begins with a story. This was on the HUFFPost some time ago. Marlene Winwell was 18 years old, sitting in church when she decided she wanted to leave. The pastor was holding up a newspaper about the Six-Day War in the Middle East, and everybody cheered because war is one of the end-time prophecies, she told HUFFPost. He was happy the war had broken out, and that, to me, was the last straw. It was one of my last days in church, end quote. So family, 4 signs that you might see to recognize if you've been raised in a communal, narcissistic family. This might sound familiar if you've been paying attention to comments circulating in the early days of the current war with Iran. Winwell's parents were fundamentalist Christian missionaries in China and Taiwan, and after she grew up in Taiwan, they sent her to a missionary boarding school in Southern California. Winwell was part of the Jesus movement, something I know something about, as well as the Six-Day War, an evangelical Protestant revival that was popular in the 60s and 70s, living in a commune with those she described as Christian hippies and Jesus freaks. That is, until she graduated from high school and started questioning things. More and more things just gave me doubts, finding out about how the Bible was actually written, she said. There was an intellectual process going on where I didn't know and didn't want to just buy it. I want to know myself. Well, Winwell left the church, attended college, and now helps people recover from intense religious upbringing and experiences. In 2011, she coined the term religious trauma syndrome to describe how people who have experienced certain extreme religious communities have been emotionally and mentally harmed. A lot of fear, a lot of low self-esteem, and feeling of no control. They get told what to think, what to believe, how to behave, what to wear, and all these things they have no control over, she said. My roommate's walking in the room here. Winwell recalled wanting to focus her studies on religious trauma after noticing that nobody was concerned about the mental and emotional damage done by religion. In her classes, she pointed out that even people experiencing religious trauma might not fully understand they're going through it, depending on their environment. Most religious beliefs are healthy and sustaining for their members, but experts say there's a point at which devotion can tip into something else: isolation, delusion, a break from reality that often gets rationalized as, quote, good faith, end quote. Sometimes it's an underlying mental health condition. Sometimes it's pressure from the community itself. Either way, crossing that line can leave people dealing with real lasting trauma. So, why is that rather poignant to me? Well, I was exposed to the Children of God commune, as well as the Jesus movement in Southern California. It's bizarre how many places came out of Southern California, South LA, in fact. The Calvary Chapel movement, the TBN television station, the Benny Hinn people, and even Jimmy Jones, who infamously went to South America and people drank the Kool-Aid, as so tragically occurred. So, why are people stepping away from MAGA Christianity? Share what it really took to step away. Well, experts say deep devotion can veer into religious psychosis territory, but there's a spectrum. Religious psychosis is not a formal medical diagnosis, but a common term used to describe when someone is dealing with a break from reality, like experiencing delusions or hallucinations, using religion and faith as a means to justify it. For example, someone who is considered to be under religious psychosis could be a person who truly believes that they are a divine figure, a prophet, a messiah, and they have supernatural powers or control over other human beings. There's a spectrum at play. For healthy religious beliefs to become more psychotic symptoms, Harold Koenig, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Duke University, told HUFFPost. Koenig personally identifies as religious and is the founding co-director of Duke's Center for Spirituality, Theology, and Health. These extreme psychotic symptoms are common found in adults who already have mental health disorders. It's estimated that around 25 to 39% of schizophrenia patients have experienced these sorts of delusional psychotic symptoms. Although in recent years, medical and scientific communities have advocated that there needs to be more research done in understanding the relationship and connection between schizophrenia and religion. You typically not only have psychotic religious beliefs, but you've got other symptoms with regard to people with a psychotic disorder, such as their ability to process, their ability to relate to others, Koenig said. These people, these psychotic people, are different because, again, it's a disorder. It dysfunctions in various areas of their life, including engagement within a faith community and engagement within a family. Winnell also points out that for a lot of these cases, children can be victims. Well, let's look at life. The funniest posts from people this week, we might say, comes from maybe the HuffPost or Microsoft News. Most extreme believers grew up in it, she said. You're not supposed to have your own opinion. You're not supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to be devoted to the authority of your parents, your pastor, a priest, or the scripture, or what God is telling you. It's all externally focused. The warning signs of religious psychosis that experts want you to know. There's no concrete list, of course, of definitive signs to look out for, especially since religious psychosis is not a formal medical diagnosis. However, experts, quote unquote, do point to reoccurring characteristics and habits that should indicate to family members or fellow members of the faith community that something is wrong. It's typically not all that subtle, Koenig said. Unless you're familiar with the religious beliefs of a group, you have to be very conscious if you're outside the group. But if you're within the group, you're going to be able to pretty much detect when someone is different. For instance, the inability to engage with outside perspectives. Winnell points out that some people and groups shut off all sources of information, which limits their critical thinking abilities and does not welcome outside perspectives. Quote, when they shut off all sources of information, they don't acknowledge any sources of expertise. They don't read, they don't talk to people that are outside their group. They get very insulated, quote, end quote. Winnell said, they only see one view and cannot seem to take any information even when it's well established. Excessive religious behavior. These people will practice their faith to an extreme degree, such as praying all day long, Winnell said, or looking for divine signs in very mundane decisions. It's also about taking these practices to a degree that other members of the community wouldn't notice, such as obsessively praying, Koenig said. Then there's complete isolation. Healthy faith is more outward-facing, Koenig said, because many religions focus on building connections and caring for others. If someone starts focusing more inwardly and pulling away from relationships, especially their family and other members of the church, it's a big sign they're trying to isolate themselves. Fourthly, dysfunctional in their day-to-day life. If someone is saying their faith interferes with their ability to keep their job or socialize, that's a big concern, Koenig said. And fifthly, grandiosity in mentality. If they think they're special and they're better than the rest of us because we don't understand the truth that they've got, that's a problem, Winnell said. Growing up around this energy can mean needing to process trauma later in life. Recovery from religious trauma comes with obstacles that other trauma survivors rarely face. I've personally seen this in my practice over the years. Then we have health. Are you a doomer? Is that mindset so gloomy and so determined to be almost nihilistic? This mindset is all too common in some groups today. Remember, there's always this focus on isolation. We have the only truth. Quote, there's really an interesting difference, she says, between recovering from this trauma and other kinds of trauma, such as, trauma or physical abuse, Winnell said. If you were abused, then you're not encouraged to go to that person and forgive them. Whereas in the religious context, a lot of pressure is put on the victim to forgive and forget. Now, as a sideline, I will say, I can forgive you, but I'm pretty sure we are not God and we're not forgetting. In our society, we have a religion all around us as if it's fine. It's hard to get support from other people in the same way, Winnell said. People don't tend to believe you or feel sorry for you. If you say your parents made you go, it's like, oh, you poor you. Your parents made you go to church? My parents started me when I was 5 in a Holy Roller Assembly of God church. Trust me, I can tell you stories you'll never believe. Many psychiatrists and psychologists may not have personal religious experience like you and I do, or knowledge on how certain faiths operate, Koenig said. So there's a limit to the traditional diagnostic tools available to evaluate someone on the extreme side. The religious illusion sometimes makes it difficult for a doctor to see through it to really get to the bottom of what the problem is, he said. Sometimes it doesn't take care of the problem leading the person with some residual symptoms that they may need to seek help for. Koenig reminds and recommends us that anyone affected or who knows someone who is affected by extreme religious beliefs should seek care from a doctor who is sensitive or sympathetic to those beliefs. Decades now after leaving the Jesus movement, Winnell has built her career helping people recover from similar religious experiences. For her, the path forward starts with something very simple. It has to do with learning some self-respect, growing up and learning to trust your own thoughts and feelings and believe what you intuitively are thinking about. Trusting yourself more, she said. Again, the original version of this story caught my eye. It was published in the HUFFPost at an earlier date. I don't know when, I didn't look it up. But it caught my eye because I experienced the Jesus or the Children of God commune. And when I was in the military, I was in military intelligence and I went around to some of the religious communes in Texas. And it was truly frightening to see what went on. I've seen other cult groups, we call them, and people that came out of them and people that are still struggling with it. So, the other thing that I want to talk about in the near future is the AI gospel. AI is growing, we all know that. Spiritual experts share what worries them most about AI gospel. There's a word for the specific pain that makes people leave organized religion. And that word, it makes so much sense. I'll go into that in another live. People who left MAGA Christianity behind share what it really took to step away. And that to me is sort of so faith-oriented and politically oriented. It's a hot potato, really. The Christian right is on the attack, they say, and the target will actually shock you. So again, this article was originally on the HuffPost, and I had to go through it. I had to share it. I welcome your comments because to me, it's fascinating. So with that, I'll leave it, and I hope you've had a blessed and encouraged day. And if I can figure out how to shut this off, I'm done. Let's see. Let's see. Am I still here? I guess I'm still on. Oh, there it goes. End live video. That's how it works. Have a good one.